Oh, hi everyone. As you can see, we made some more progress. We removed the dashboard and the transmission cover, which contains the gear sticks. They're laid over there down by the wall, and we were able to get in and look inside the gearbox. The two problems that we had, first, reduction gear being slack on its shaft, and the PTO are both resolved. The first one, the collapse of this bearing on the end of this shaft, was the main reason why the gear was slack. I think it had been putting a lot of pressure on this spacer here, and in fact there is a wear lip on that spacer, and I think with that spacer wearing, the gear slightly comes slack. And also because that shaft can move in and out, wasn't helping the issue. It has popped a snap ring off the back of the bearing inside the gearbox, which there's a bearing sits in the other end of this shaft inside, and there's a sliding shaft sits inside that bearing, and the snap ring has come off, and that's allowed the shaft to move. The reason there's a bearing there is that those two shafts have to run independently of each other at different speeds. So if I stick a washer on that spacer with the cog on, it all tightens back up again and everything seems to line back up, so that's all okay. The PTO business was on the end of this lever in the side, down in there. There is a selector and a fork, and somehow the two had come apart. The selector was no longer sitting inside the fork, so I just managed to spring that back in, and it works fine now, so that's not a problem. So those two problems are both solvable. So I think we'll get back to taking the crankshaft out. I'm going to leave the transmission. I don't want to do any more on the work on the transmission for now, so I want to get this crankshaft out and measured up, mic'd up. So I've released some oil lines inside the crankcase off the top of the filter body, which is that thing with the big nut on top, the oil pressure relief valve nut and screw. I've taken the two lines off to the main bearings either side, and by doing that, that's released the main bearings. They can be unbolted. I have to take this cover off here, which it's fairly simple. I've slackened the bolts off, remembering to take that screw, which we talked about earlier in another video. That screw is just an indexer, so it allows us to put the flywheel on in a certain position so it all goes back together correctly, thus keeping the shaft and the flywheel all in balance. So I think that's what we'll do tonight. Get those two main bearings out. They are of the adjustable type, which is good. They usually don't have much wear on them because they are the first bearings to get oil, and if the oil's good, then generally there's never much wear on them. I have been looking at pistons in case I have to actually put another set of pistons in this if the bore is too far worn. And they are starting to get a little bit scarce again for these tractors. Those 4.5-inch pistons for these mid-range John Deere B styled tractors. I did have trouble getting a set of it back for another tractor I rebuilt, so I might just get that block out sooner than later, get it measured up, and in case I have to order some pistons before they become too scarce again. So yeah, I think that's what we'll do tonight. Get that crankshaft out. It'll make a nice big hole in the crankcase, allowing us to take the camshaft out and the oil pump. Got there eventually. Yeah. So that's what we'll do. Alright then. Thanks for looking. Bye.